welcome to this short video on how to give powerful feedback without the fear and anxiety. I'm Norman Blissett, Managing Director of Gallinack, and I'm on a mission to transform organisations by improving the quality of management and leadership at all levels to create fantastic, fulfilling and productive workplaces for all their people. You already know that giving great feedback is a vital part of leadership. Unfortunately, many leaders make the highly expensive mistake of doing it badly or even not doing it at all. But giving poorly delivered feedback or avoiding it completely is one of the worst things you can do as a leader for the well-being and performance of both you and your team. When you think about the importance of feedback, that's a crazy situation. In this video, I'll share with you the 5 essential steps for giving great feedback that if you put in place will completely transform the way you think about delivering feedback and minimise the fear and anxiety most of you feel at the mere thought of it. The same approach works in person and remotely. The only difference is that you're not in a room together. For remote feedback, do it by video and really observe and pay attention to the recipient. I'll share some more tips in a few moments. The 2 main reasons for doing it badly or not doing it at all are a fear of getting into conflict and not knowing how to do it. This is especially so for more difficult feedback. We'll deal with both over the next few minutes. Make sure you have a notepad and pen to take some notes. Before I take you through the 5 steps, I'd like you to think about the best feedback you ever had. Pause the video now, take a few moments to think about the best feedback you ever had and why it was so powerful. Hey, now on to step number 1, which is to focus on the recipient. Most leaders are focused on themselves when delivering feedback. How do I get my message across? Where and when do I do it? How do I manage my emotions and anxiety, etc., etc. But the person you should be focused on most is the recipient. The big question at this stage is how do you deliver the feedback in a way the recipient is most likely to receive it positively and act on it. That means putting yourself in their shoes and adapting your approach to them. So reflect on the following questions. How have they received feedback before and how did they respond? Why might they have responded in this way? How are they likely to respond to this feedback? How will they respond to different ways of delivering the feedback? And I don't mean by email or text. You should rarely deliver in these ways, but rather on the different approaches to a conversation. Are they already aware of the issue and how self-aware are they generally? What are their motivations at work and how will the issue to feedback on impact on those motivations? What is going on for them that might be contributing to the issue? What is the best time and location for them? You'll certainly need somewhere private. What assumptions are you making about the situation? So if you're thinking about feedback you need to give someone, ask yourself these questions now. Once you have a clear idea about where the individual might be on the issue and how they will respond and act on the feedback most positively, then you can move to the next step. Pause the video now to reflect on those questions. Step 2 is to think long term, then work backwards. The next mistake most leaders make is to think of the feedback only in the context of the particular issue. However, it's far more productive and helpful to think of it in the context of the long term. So ask yourself, where does that individual want to get to in their job, career, or their personal development? Then ask, what do they get out of work? The answers to those 2 questions will help frame the context of the feedback. For ambitious, career-minded people, it could be in the context of supporting their career development. For someone who is happy in their role and wants to do it well, then that is how to be happier and do the job well. For someone who's struggling, not enjoying the work, or even in the wrong role, then you have that context to help them out of that. Now ask yourself, is this feedback important enough in that long-term context? Will it help person X to achieve Y? If not, then maybe it's not important enough to spend time on. Now you need to think about a structure for the feedback. You have the longer term context. So what is the outcome that will most enable the recipient to get to that longer term context? Identify the feedback goals you think that would most benefit the individual. Then plan the steps to get there, from how you introduce the issue to a step-by-step approach to the outcomes. I like to do this as a flowchart with scenarios at each step of the conversation and how I will respond to each scenario to move the conversation on. Thinking of it as a process flowchart removes a lot of the anxiety, as does the planning and practice it forces on you. I'll talk about the key skills in a few moments, and you can also download our feedback guide which goes into the structure in more detail. I'll share this with you at the end of the video. Step 3 is to develop the key skills. So what are the key skills for giving awesome feedback? The first is to stay objective and factual. Avoid hearsay, second-hand accounts, and internally test and challenge any assumptions you may be making about the individual or situation. Be sure about the what and why of the feedback. The key coaching skills of active listening and question making are next. For more self-aware and reflective people, asking open questions to enable self-discovery can be a more powerful way of delivering feedback than giving it direct. The what would you stop, start, continue question works well, as does, if you're doing it again, what would you do differently? Others may benefit from a more direct approach where you calmly, objectively and caringly set out the issues. The skills here are clarity of language and caring how the recipient will receive it. It's amazing how many people think they've said one thing and the other person thinks something different, or how the emotions stirred by the recipient's interpretation of the language used can diminish the impact of the feedback. In all situations, active listening is a vital skill. Not just listening to understand, but listening to put yourself into their shoes, to tune into their emotions, words and body language so you can gauge the response and adapt accordingly. Being adaptable, both to the needs of the recipient and in the delivery, is also important. For example, you may decide the recipient is sufficiently self-aware and reflective to take a coaching style approach. However, soon after starting with open questions, you realise it's not working and decide to take a more direct approach. Factor this into your planning and preparation. If you're delivering the feedback remotely, you'll need to work harder at your active listening to really tune in to how the individual is responding. Be aware of their location, and for some who are home-based, they may feel this as an intrusion into their homes. Factor that into your planning. Towards the end of the discussion, you'll need to summarise the conversation and agree actions to take forward. Doing this concisely and with clarity is a skill you should practice. Finally, for step 3, be timely. It needs to be given soon after an event or early on in a pattern of performance or behaviours. Delay will weaken the impact. Write all of this into your plan you started in step 2. Earlier in the video, I mentioned dealing with emotions. This is step 4 and particularly important when delivering difficult feedback. First of all, you should be able to identify and manage your own emotions, particularly unhelpful ones like impatience, frustration, irritation and even anger. Emotions are not all bad though, and showing some vulnerability could actually be helpful. So take time now to think about the feedback you need to give and identify the emotions you're likely to experience, or if you prefer, think back to feedback you gave in the past and identify the emotions you experienced. Think about how you experience the emotions, the triggers that might provoke them, and how the recipient may experience you as a result. Then think about how you manage the emotions, how you respond when the emotions emerge to keep them under control. Next, think about the emotions your recipient may experience and exhibit. Again, take time now to identify these emotions and how you, in the way you deliver the feedback, can help the recipient deal with the emotions. Sometimes the recipient will display strong emotions that you'll need to deal with. Crying is one response you may see. It's always good to acknowledge this and let them decide whether to continue or to take a few minutes to regroup. Offer to leave the room for a few minutes rather than them going out. Responses like silence, defensiveness, denial, anger or blame at you and others can be challenging to deal with. The key is not to allow the recipient to transfer these emotions onto yourself. They are the recipient's emotions, not yours. Remind yourself why the feedback is needed. It's down to them and not you. However, you should reflect on your own approach and adapt if you think a different line may reduce the emotional response. If the recipient can't move beyond their emotional response, take time out and regroup. A good way of doing this is to say, I can see you're finding this conversation challenging to deal with. Let's take some time out to reflect and come back together at a different time to share where we've got to. Don't give up though. For some people it may take several conversations to get to where you need to. Again, write this into your delivery plan you started to create at step 2. Step 5 is to create a culture of feedback. Feedback, positive and negative, is so much easier to deliver if it's ingrained in the work. As a leader, you have the opportunity to create the culture in your team. Start by inviting others to feedback about you. It's a bit scary at first, but invaluable in the long term. Build that into your one-to-ones and team meetings. Then encourage individuals to reflect and feedback about pieces of work. Schedule time in meetings to facilitate group reflection on how they are working together and on how specific pieces of work could be done better. Establish some ground rules so people feel safe and supported. If there's any sense they may be criticised or embarrassed for speaking up, offering ideas, having a different opinion or giving feedback, they won't do it. Before you know, you'll have that feedback culture. So here are the 5 steps. Number 1, think about the recipient. 2, think long term, then work backwards. 3, build key skills. 4, manage emotions. 5, create a feedback culture. The most important action now is to commit to doing it. Set yourself a goal, write it down, monitor your progress, and yes, get some feedback and support from peers. Follow these steps and you'll be delivering awesome feedback in no time and feel much less anxious and stressed. There's more detail in our great feedback toolkit which you can download from the link next to this video. You can find out about our amazing guidance and support to boards, leaders and HR teams on our website. Details on screen and next to this video. Enjoy the ride.